Today is Thursday, May 10th, and we'll call to order a meeting of the Harwich Planning Board. At 6:30 on May 10th, 2018, and I'll call the meeting to order. Anybody recording or taping this meeting is required to notify the chair if they are taping it. We are taping it now, but if anybody else is going to, just let the chair know, and we'll be off and running. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing. It is new business, PB 2018-12, the heirs of Mark Nickerson et al., William Devine, trustee of the Robbins Family Trust, Frank L. Howes Trust, care of David L. Aarons, attorney for Frank Howell Trust, and William Devine, trustee of the Robbins Family Trust. They are owners applicants. The proposal seeks approval of a preliminary subdivision plan with waivers for an open space residential development of 5 buildable lots and an open space lots pursuant to the code of the town of Harwich, 400 Article 2 is set forth in Mass General Law 41, Section 88K through GG. The properties are located between Echo Woods and Periwinkle Way and are identified as 0 Chatham Road, map 44, parcel N7 and N10 in the RR zoning district. Introduce yourself and get to work.
Before we start the presentation by the applicant, I would just like to ask an administrative question based on the material that was sent out to us. The timing for the planning board to hear this was 45 days set to expire on, and it appears as if there's a alternate of June or May.
It's May 19th.
It's May 19th, okay, so I just wanted that clarification.
Sorry about that.
No, that's perfectly all right.
It's a very legitimate question.
It's been a very hectic
Can we
week
pick
here
the
in
month?
Harwich.
That's
So
probably why.
so I think what Charlene is telling us that we have to hear this by May 19th, which we are doing.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Unless there's a new month called May, June, or June, May.
We could create one.
Good.
Thank you very much.
We're planners, we can do anything.
So good evening. For the record, I'm Thad Eldridge with East Southeast LLC. The preliminary plan before you, we have 5.62 acres. We've provided a grid subdivision that shows that we can divide this property or subdivide this property into 5 lots. We have worked with the natural heritage folks in a preliminary capacity, and we have looked at clustering. We're in the middle of turtle habitat out here. The proposal is to take Periwinkle Way, which is a town road, and extend it into a circle, a cul-de-sac, and put the 5 lots clustered coming off of that. With a cluster subdivision, we would be creating open space, and we have specified one portion of that open space to be potential future development. In working with the NHESP, the better turtle habitat is to the north, and we don't want to paint ourselves into a corner or the town into a corner. So working with them, we've talked about just putting a restriction on that can be revoked should better open space become available in the future. We have preliminary drainage that's been cited that will take care of some puddling at the bend in Periwinkle Way. That'll bring the drainage onto the subject property where we'll put the leaching. And we are requesting the waivers that we not put in sidewalks. There are no sidewalks in the rest of the subdivision. We do have a cart path or an all-cart path that goes through the property, and we're proposing to relocate that into the 50-foot open space buffer. There are rights of others within it, even though it is fairly unused. It actually shows up on a land court plan as registered. So we don't want to get in trouble with the land court by severing someone's rights, even if they are severed. And otherwise, we were looking, again, with the NHESP, the better real estate for the turtles is to the north, and we were hoping to propose reducing or eliminating the 50-foot buffer to the owner's unknown parcel to the south so that we can push development further south. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Charlene?
Excuse me, I have reviewed the plan, as has other staff. As Thad mentioned and Conservation has noted, this would require natural heritage approval. Before this board can endorse this plan, actually and approve this plan as a definitive, we would be required to have that approval from natural heritage due to the turtles. This project did not make it in time to go to the health department, which is not that big a deal. They still need to go to health for the purposes of the definitive. Any requirements that the health department would have, and Thad and I have spoken about this, I would want him to go before health before he came here to ensure that all the requirements that they may have regarding the subdivision when it comes in as a definitive have been met. Probably be filed concurrently, but it'd be going before the Board of Health before they would come back to the planning board. Engineering had a number of comments. I won't go into those. You all have those. There is also a response, and it was made part of your packet. You do have those. I know that Thad has been in touch with Paul Sweetser, our town surveyor, to discuss those. Anything amiss would have to be ironed out before it came back as a definitive plan. Police had no concerns, highway had no concerns, or excuse me, police had no concern, fire had no concerns. And the highway department, basically their main concern was the concern about where to put snow when the road is plowed.
Yeah.
I've been in discussions with Thad, and he has indicated that they could put an appropriate area for snow removal to stockpile it so that no driveways would be blocked. Another possibility might be to have a shared driveway for a couple of the parcels, one of the panhandle lots perhaps, 4 and 3. Could have a shared driveway, or 2 and 3, so that there would be an open area there. It would require a special permit from this board. That could be done
Excuse me.
at the time of the definitive plan, so it could be one-stop shopping. As far as my comments, I really didn't have any. Thad had met with staff a couple times on this piece of property. It is a little bit unique. We don't always see properties that fall under the jurisdiction of natural heritage. So we definitely need to abide by whatever it is that natural heritage wants. Because even though they don't dictate what we do, we still take their lead. And if they say we want to preserve the northern part of the property, then I think that's what we have to do to accommodate the turtle population. I have spoken with the direct abutter, Sharon Mitchell. She came in yesterday, and I know Mr. Eldridge also spoke with her at length. If you look at the plan where it says Periwinkle Way, that's her house right there on this particular plan that I'm looking at.
Yep.
Just north of the existing end of Periwinkle Way. I think between the two of us, we have calmed her down. She was a little concerned and upset when she saw the surveyors out there, but I've spoken to her, and I know Thad has spoken to her as well. Beyond that, the only recommendation that I would make at this time, if the board sees fit to approve this, and they have to do it anyway, but certainly condition it upon them receiving full review and sign off from the Board of Health, and they will need to put those restrictions and such on the plan when it comes back as a definitive.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on the board? Jim?
Yeah, I think my first question goes to the fact that what we've been presented with is both sort of a cluster subdivision and a grid subdivision. Are these being presented in the alternative for us to sort of review and make a determine which we're more comfortable with?
They have to demonstrate by virtue of the grid that they can get 5 lots.
Oh,
So they
okay.
have to file that, the grid plan to show that they can get 5 lots. If you remember, a couple of weeks ago, we had a similar one
Right,
off of 39, and in that case, I did not like the cluster. I didn't think that it really met the test for a cluster. So in my staff report, as you might recall,
Right.
I said, even though they've presented a cluster plan here, and they've shown that they, can get the grid plan, I much prefer the grid plan based on, the length of the road. So the board does have the opportunity, if they don't feel that the preliminary cluster really meets the true test of a cluster subdivision. In this particular case, one of the things that I was appreciative of is in the grid plan, there is a road proposed that's about 300 feet long. And the cluster subdivision, it's significantly smaller, so shorter in length, therefore there will be that much less asphalt. And that's one of the, we're trying to reduce the amount of infrastructure that goes into a cluster versus a typical grid. And I think that this meets that test much better than the grid would.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Laura? Okay, now on the cluster, in one of the areas, the area along Echo Woods Road, you say open space, possible future phase. So are you talking about potentially developing that property in the future as opposed to preserving it?
It would only be in conjunction with other open space.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that.
The NHESP was most interested in preserving land to the north, up by Martha's Lane. There's a hillside up here, which is turtle habitat overwintering site. And so the idea is setting aside something here so that if an applicant comes in for area up here, there's something in place that they can develop in an area that is better or worse suited for the turtles and preserve an area that's better suited for the turtles. The restriction would still hold. It's just one that could be revoked if a better alternative comes along. It would still require natural heritage approval, your approval, and it would just go through.
So,
Any future changes that might occur as a result of future development that would alter the open space, it would have to come back to this board as a modification.
right, and I mean, I guess I would like to see that clarified on the plan.
That could be clarified certainly on the definitive, on the preliminary,
Yeah,
it
right,
doesn't really
no,
mean
on the
anything.
preliminary,
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about,
Yep.
but as we go to a definitive, I would like to see that clarified so that it was very clear that, if that were to be changed from open space, that would have to come back,
Oh, yes.
through us.
And I just recall when Hall's Path 1 went in, and then when Hall's Path was expanded, there was a problem because the open space constricted that section of road.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a similar situation, that if in the future somebody gains the rights and develops out here, we can at least point them in the direction, or the NHESP can point them in the direction of where it's better for the turtles, or it preserves more of the contiguous land for the turtles.
I think I'd second what Jim said, because as a board, needless to say, this has happened a couple of times, and we're trying to go back in our memory, and as the board changes, you tend to forget it. So if it's codified on the plan, I think you're far better off. How do the turtles know? This isn't a rude question, but
Turtles, when they find a turtle and it's reported, they basically draw a half-mile radius around that turtle and find all the undeveloped land and say, that's our estimated habitat. Most of the turtles that they found are further north, up in Thompson's Field. And the agent has seen many up there. I'm not saying that there aren't turtles here, there possibly are. I've never seen one in the woods. When I'm in the field, I've only seen one in a lawn before. So if there are turtles here, through the NHESP process, through construction, the area to be developed is sequestered. The turtles are then relocated outside of that area
Okay,
before construction starts. But then if there are no turtles there, it's better for them in the larger areas. of
Okay.
the room.
Jim?
Yeah, I just have one more comment, and that sort of is echoing something that Charlene suggested about considering, joint driveways, but for a completely different reason than the snow loading. I have a concern with what may be 3 driveways leading into this, this sort of circle at the end of Periwinkle Road, being in too close proximity to each other and potentially causing a traffic problem. And I mean, I know it's only 3 lots, but, 2 neighbors backing out at the same time have the potential of backing into each other once they get into the street. So I'm concerned about so many driveways within such close proximity.
Okay, Joe?
Yeah, I have a question. With respect to the way the plan is laid out, you show Lot 1, and then you have Lot 1 open. Can you explain that to me? You have Lot 2 open and Lot 5 open.
So in order to have larger lot areas and still have the open space requirement, part of the lots would be restricted as open space. And then
Oh, I
no
see.
development.
So you couldn't build on where that's,
Right, where the open space is would be the restricted space.
so just to finish that question, so let's just look at Lot 1, okay? Lot 1 is 27,858 feet. In fact, does the person who buys Lot 1 buy 27,858 plus 15,076?
No. There would be an area of development where their house could go, driveway, all of that, of 12,500 square feet. Then there would be open space for the remainder.
But who owns it?
They would own it, but it would have the.
I understand, they can't,
Yeah.
I understand what open space is. But, so in other words, whomever, Johnny Buyer, he ends up owning 27,858 plus 15,075. But one portion of it is open space, the 15,000.
Correct, so he would own 12,513 plus the 15.
Yes, for the total of 27.
Totally, yeah.
Where's the 12,000? Where did I miss that?
It's the 27,858
Here's-
minus the
Yeah,
15,076.
here's the 15, in a bigger size, Joe. Here's the 15,076.
Yeah.
And the 12,513, which is a total of 27,858. And what, Thad, correct me if I'm wrong, but what that is saying is he can develop this area here, right, which is
Yes.
the 12,513, but there's a restriction on this that they're calling open space,
I got you.
correct?
And the same is true when you move over to the next lot.
Lot 2?
Yeah,
2 and Lot 5.
And Lot 5.
Yeah,
I see it now.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we're giving them the 12,000 square feet, which is the minimum required, and we're making the lot size bigger, so it's better, but some of that is woodland.
Larry?
And you said, the simple question, what are you gonna do about the cart path?
I was just-
There is a requirement that we have a walking trail or provide a means for a walking trail. The cart path would go through the open space.
So you're
And
gonna,
across Periwinkle Circle.
Yes, it'll come right up to Periwinkle Circle, and people would walk across the pavement and then continue on along the cart path.
Okay, no, I see it.
Okay.
may I?
Next.
Yeah, go ahead.
My question to that is pretty simple, but it goes to what Joe was saying with the cart path. I mean, what is the use of this cart path now, and who has access to it? Everybody, or
You do.
That's a public way.
it's a public way?
It may be a public way. We don't know how far back we can trace it.
Yeah.
I found it in the 1850s, but I don't know if it makes it back to the 1840s, which would be required to be considered an ancient way. There's a land courted parcel to the north that's in the middle of the woodland. It's a
Yeah.
half acre.
Mm-hmm.
And on that registration are deeded rights along that cart path to get back out to Chatham Road.
I'll be darned.
So even though the land court severed the cart path with the registration, we can't ignore those rights even though they technically don't exist. Also because, there need to be walking trails within the open space, we can get two birds with one stone by rerouting that cart path. We maintain the rights for others, whether they
Yeah.
can use them or not, and then the public who can use the open space would then be able to.
Is Ms. Mitchell aware of that cart path going through her property?
Yes, she is.
She's got copies of the plan,
Okay,
so.
so she's aware of it.
And I met with her yesterday and reviewed it,
Yes.
and part of the thing is the open space for Lot 5,
Mm-hmm.
our intention would be to get that cart path to head up in that direction.
Yep.
We walk.
Kind of circumventing her property and through the open
Yes,
spaces.
and we can't create cart path on the owner's unknown parcel to the side, going around hers.
I put a question mark there. I was wondering what the heck we're gonna do. I mean,
So again, we can't ignore the rights of others even though they don't
exactly.
truly exist.
That's-
So
And it's a pre-existing
Yeah.
cart path.
Oh, sure, and it's decreed.
Yeah.
It's on a land court plan.
Oh,
Wow.
So
To the 1850s.
it was a 1930s land court plan.
I'll be darned.
And the U.S. Coast and Geologic Survey 1851 map shows the cart path.
Wow.
my reaction, Mary, is good luck to the person that has to do the title on this.
Oh, man.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay,
Jim volunteered to do the title.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Wouldn't be his
Okay.
first one.
Yeah, that's for sure, Jeff. Anyway, the remaining question I have is the open space that is not part of one of the other lots. How do you propose that that open space is going to be managed and controlled?
We've talked to the conservation agent about having a conservation restriction over top of it.
But, okay, you can have a conservation restriction on it, that prohibits development. But what I am very well aware of in a lot of parts of Harwich where we have these cluster subdivisions, those open spaces become dumping grounds. And that was not the intent. So how is this going to be managed? Is it going to be managed by some neighborhood association? Is it going to be managed by the town of Harwich? Is it going to be managed by the Harwich Conservation Trust? Have you given any thought to how that would be managed?
We have talked to Amy at the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Commission would take the conservation restriction. I have placed on the plan, there's the silt fence that needs to go in prior to development, so that any turtle that's within the development area can be relocated outside of it. And we're also proposing a post and rail fence around the perimeter, so that anybody buying one of these lots will know that that's their limit.
Around the perimeter of the lots.
Around the perimeter of the lots, so that they have a starting point of knowing that that's where they're supposed to be.
Okay, but when you say that Amy is going to accept the conservation restriction, that
Yes.
just means that the town can enforce it. Is the
Correct.
town going to do the day-to-day management of that property? And has the town accepted that?
That's always a difficult one, isn't it?
That's why I'm asking the question.
Sure.
Probably not.
Right, and that's exactly why I asked the question, because I think there needs to be an answer to that question before you get the final approval on the definite subdivision.
Yeah.
So how is the day-to-day administration of a
Right,
conservation
and it
restriction
can't-
managed?
Yeah, and if the town's not going to do it, and I didn't think the town was going to do it, I mean,
There can be a homeowners
There can be a
association, and that may be the best way to
association.
go.
and that is one approach, or if it's a piece of property that is environmentally sensitive, the Harwich Conservation Trust may
Yeah.
be interested in being involved.
Mhm.
So there are other options other than the town of Harwich, but I think we need to know how that's going to be managed before approving the definite.
If it is the homeowners association, and, we know who those folks are within the association, and, for instance, Amy goes out because we hold the conservation restriction on it.
Right.
You know, if people are dumping, then she would contact the Homeowners Association and say, you have to clean this up.
Right, yes, and you have to stop it from happening in
Yeah.
the future. So that's what, yeah, my concern is with that.
Okay, so, yeah, we'd look at addressing that in the, in the definitive. Any other questions from the board? Mary, you had one, it's been answered.
My
Kinda.
concern was really the cart path and whether or not, particularly where you said you found it back to 1850, whether it goes back and becomes an ancient way, and if it does, then your relocation might be in jeopardy, perhaps?
Not able to do it, you mean, Mary?
Yeah, I don't
If
know
it's
whether
an
you,
ancient
can you
way.
relocate an ancient way?
Yes,
Yes.
You still can,
You
okay.
can.
Done it before, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my understanding is as long as you're relocating it so that it has the same usable rights
Okay.
as it did prior to the relocation,
yep.
you know, it's acceptable.
Okay, any questions from the extensive public tonight? Hearing none, I
well,
guess.
wait, we
He
got
has
Wayne.
one, he has
You
one.
need to go to the microphone, Wayne.
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
right up here.
More of a point of,
Or, that's good.
yeah, more of a question than anything else. Are any of these designated?
Excuse me, sir, could you just tell us who you are? And
Yeah,
what-
Wayne Robillard, 404 Route 137, Harwich, Mass.
Okay.
Are any of these houses designated affordable or low income? Okay, so that doesn't need to be done. The other question I had is, are the owner, whoever purchases these houses, will they be informed that they will not be able to build on that land? Because if I bought a house and found out 10 years later that I can't, like, build a garage or a shed, I'd be kind of upset.
On
So,
your property.
yes.
It'll be on the deed.
It's on the
Okay.
title, yeah.
And is this a common septic system, or is this an individual septic system?
The proposal will be individual septic systems.
Okay.
We don't have the room for it.
No, more questions I was just interested in. Thank you.
That's good
Okay.
question.
Good.
I doubt that our new sewer system will ever reach into here.
It'll
All
probably
in good time.
be a while. Are there any further questions from the board, from the public? Hearing none?
Are we prepared to,
No, you've got to close the public hearing first.
oh,
It's
motion
not a
to...
public hearing, so you don't need to close anything. It's a
Okay.
preliminary plan.
Okay.
Excuse me, didn't you have something you wanted done before we actually voted it?
Well, no, that would be.
In the definitive.
That would be reflected in the definitive.
Thank
which
you.
will come back
Okay.
in front of us. So it was more sort of informing the applicant that that's what we would be looking for in the definitive as opposed to
Right.
a revision to
Yep.
this preliminary.
Move to approve the preliminary plan entitled Preliminary Subdivision Plan Sheet 1 of 2 and Sheet 2 of 2 dated March 28th, 2018.
Second,
Wait, you gotta keep going down. Prepared for,
Prepared for heirs of Mark Nickerson et al., Periwinkle Way, Harwich, Mass., scale 1 to 40, subject to the issues raised by all town departments, including the requirement that Board of Health review and approval shall be required prior to the planning board holding a public hearing on the definitive plan application.
We don't need anything about the homeowners association, is that will be brought up?
he knows.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
I'll second Joe's motion.
Thank
good.
you.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
And we don't have to vote?
No roll call.
No roll call vote tonight.
No roll call.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Look forward to seeing you. Have a good time. Not having turtle soup for supper tonight.
Oh, man, that's brutal.
My dad used to say, turtle soup, make it snappy.
Make it snappy.
My mother did too. Okay,
Affecting the rights.
the second item on the agenda
So that's why he can't move them on the.
is PB 2018-14, Weiler and Walkley Associates as the applicant for the Weiler Family LP as owner, seeks approval of a waiver of site plan to remove the proposed sidewalk from the approved site plan that runs from Long Pond Drive to the Weiler office. The property is located at 527 Long Pond Drive, map 11, parcel A2 in the RR and WR zoning district. The application is pursuant to the code of the town of Harwich, section 325-55F. You're okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Joe, go right ahead, give us your name and address and get
Okay.
to work.
My name is Craig Hicks. I'm 791 Route 28, Harwichport.
Okay.
Brief background, I here on behalf of Weiler Family LP. I have extensive work in ADA and site plan, 30-plus years, almost 40 now of development site. And as I put in my narrative, which I know you all got, and I'm going to try to be brief because I think it's a fairly simple question. We did do our due diligence of DigSafe, and the flag was raised with me in that I didn't understand why there was an ADA ramp. And then upon discussions with the town engineering department and with the Charlene and the planning department, you know, the relocation of natural gas and underground utilities and pretty much the picture I sent you in the narrative, a good 100 yards of that hill would go bye-bye with all of the vegetation. And I just kept asking, it's a sidewalk to nowhere, because a professional office, as Dr. Weiler is, and in fact, you know, facility, it's not a retail, I'm gonna go walk to the dentist type thing. It's a professional office where you make an appointment and you drive there and you go there. So just from a common sense standpoint, I questioned, you know, why are you gonna tear the hill apart and make a sidewalk that, you know, will sit there. The facility, I think it is important. In my ADA background, it is very important to have facilities ADA compliant, and this one is. There are sidewalk crossings, there's appropriate ramps, there are appropriate parking spaces. The facility is ADA compliant. Getting there, I think, is a different situation, and I don't think ADA, in my background, has ever gone to that extreme that, you know, someone may at some point go down there, not for the use. And I put in my narrative that there's many more uses that are along the town sidewalk that don't have individual ramps and or sidewalks directly to your sidewalk system. So in an effort to try to keep this simple, I would offer that both the engineering department and the planning department, I think, agreed that this waiver request is a good one. And in reading the staff notes from Charlene with the motion and the 2 cents of the different departments, I wouldn't like to, I don't want to burden the board, because I've been on so many boards, I know time is precious. So I think I'd rather just answer questions if you have any, because I think
Okay.
it's pretty straightforward.
Good. I guess, Joe, you have a question?
You know how many times this has been here?
No, I don't.
8?
Okay,
Your problem is you got an old gray-haired guy who's been on this board for 12 years,
okay,
okay? Doctor fought us from day one. And unfortunately for him, when he first built his building and set his practice up there,
Yep.
our staff, one of our staff, who has since moved on,
yep.
lived right, you can just see the top of her house sticking up back
Oh,
there.
okay,
I mean, I'm upset that he never put it in, okay? We directed it 15 years ago. And he hung in there and hung in there and came back before us and asked us to do away with it on a prior occasion, more than once. I'm sorry. I think there needs to be a sidewalk there, and I think he needs to put it in.
Okay.
And by the way, that's not the first time that I've said that as a member of this board. It's all about access out, really access from his property and pedestrian access for the
Fontaine Medical.
Fontaine Medical.
right. Well, I guess I would answer that in saying that I don't know all the ancient history. I was in the dentist chair as I said, my previous employer was Dirt Works, and I questioned,
You couldn't
after
question
all
very
my
much, though.
ADA work, you know, if everybody's been to Peterborough, New Hampshire, I made the townhouse compliant, Depot Square compliant, my Conval School Board seat, I make sure the gym was compliant after 40 years. And I totally stress and agree that ADA compliance, this is not, if any of you have been to the amphitheater in Eastham, the National Park Service,
Yes.
I worked for Dirt Works and I did that ADA ramp. Now, there's a purpose to that ADA ramp. You get from your parking and you go down to the amphitheater. So I did all the sidewalks, I did the 1 in 20 ramp, and that's where the light bulb went off, and it said, I honestly don't understand this. So you can say you would like a sidewalk there and bar all the ancient history, because I don't have anything to do with that, because I'm new down here. Bar all of that, it doesn't accomplish the objective of ADA compliance, because no one is going to go across Route 6, where there are sidewalks, from the retail area where there are sidewalks. They're not gonna stroll down and go to the dentist's office. It's a professional building. It'd be like asking somebody, or the town putting in a sidewalk to Cranberry Valley, which I put that, you go to Cranberry Valley to go play golf. You drive there, you bring your clubs. It's a destination.
Yeah.
A professional office is similar in that you make an appointment months in advance, you drive your car, you go to there, and the facility, both Fontaine and Weiler's, is ADA compliant, which I totally agree with. Getting down to Long Pond Road is outside of that as far as I'm concerned. And I think it's reasonable, instead of tearing the whole hill apart, for a sidewalk that's virtually, it'll be a miracle if anybody ever does use it.
Joe?
So,
I have to hang in there
before you answer, just separate the, I'm here now and I've been in the dentist chair for a couple of years, to the ancient history. So I appreciate that you've been here before, but I don't know all of that.
I understand.
Yep.
That he had to come before us, you know, that little parking lot across the street from
Yep.
this access?
Yep.
We gave him that. He had to get approval from this board for that.
And I did put the striping in, just so you know, Joe, because I agree
Okay.
with that.
And the other question, and I'm not so sure now, I just, because I go to Fontaine in my own vehicle.
Right.
But at least on prior occasions, this was the access to public transportation. In other words, if there was a bus, and there is a bus that goes through there, or
Well, it actually goes up into the facility, the RTA thing?
Yes.
Yeah, it actually brings people up to Fontaine's.
okay.
So that was another reason, my rationale of saying, well, they're not dumping them on Long Pond and they're strolling up to they're bringing them to Fontaine's. And I think that, I agree with you, you would want somebody to be able to get there, but they get there automatically.
There's no parade of walkers on Monday morning?
No.
Any other questions? Joe?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
I'm good, Larry, thank you.
Mary?
I'm good, he answered my question. I was wondering where the bus station was,
Yeah.
Okay.
where the drop-off was.
Anybody?
Did
You're
you
here.
want
Do
anything
wanna
from me?
Ask a question? Go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Linda Schrake. I am I'm speaking for my son who's at sea right now, and he is in a butter. And I have a couple questions. We've been here numerous times over the years. And my question is, if this is removed, if this waiver is in place, will this mean we'll be back in another few years asking for another access
Yeah.
to
Could be.
Weiler's office?
Yeah, could be.
Or are we going to call this quits? Where,
May I answer that?
You may, please.
Call this quits.
okay,
Because this, if you may recall, Joe, this went through extensive review by the Cape Cod Commission. And it was very much set in stone that this was going to be the only access to those properties.
limited access highway.
Exactly. There is no access that would come out onto 137. And I think as long as any of us are around and even beyond that, it would never, ever be recommended by any staff member that there be any other access except directly from Long Pond Drive in its existing location. Certainly
do
not off of
agree.
137.
I do agree with the idea that it is kind of a road to nowhere, in that
Yeah.
unless the Dart or Breeze was going to drop them off on the corner there, I can't imagine.
Right. And if I might make just a comment, more than one person has referred to that as a street, the
It's a driveway.
driveway. It's a driveway, and therein lies the problem, it's not a problem. Therein lies the compliance issue. If this was a road, then it would be a sidewalk. Because this is a driveway, this is a ramp.
Yep.
And has to comply with ramp criteria under the ADA. So there's the difference. And we did get, our town engineer did reach out to the folks at the Architectural Access Board at the state, and I don't have it in the file, and I didn't even think of it until now, but we did get an opinion that because this is a driveway, it cannot have the same waivers under ADA, so that could only be a sidewalk. This would be considered a ramp.
Yeah.
And that's the crux of the issue is, you know, it would have to be
Point
a
A to point
switchback
B is a lot
all
of
the
work,
way up.
because you're talking about 5%.
Yeah, it can't be a traditional sidewalk.
Yeah.
Thank
Does
you.
that answer your question?
Yes, it does, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? No? You want to make the motion or want somebody else to?
Gentlemen.
Somebody else better, because I'm going to vote against it.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I have a couple questions. Wayne Robillard
Go right
for
ahead.
Route 137. I am also in a butter to the property. Technically, probably just a few feet, because where my yard and the four corners meet, so it might just be there. Question I had, actually, the first one I have goes back a few years. Like, ever since this whole, like, expansion started over there, it's just been, we've been dragged in here time after time. You know, no matter what abutters say in this town, it seems like whatever has money talks. Did I read somewhere that there was a financial hardship in this? Because I think I read that online. There's some kind of hardship.
I'm not representing that. I'm representing that this is it's just, it might be a waste of money, but not a hardship.
Well, what does it say?
In none
Do
of
you
the
ha- 'cause
literature.
I mean,
No, it just
do you
simply.
have a copy of that I can look
It
at?
just simply says site plan to remove the proposed sidewalk from the approved site plan that runs along Long Pond Drive to the Weiler office. There's nothing at all that says anything about a hardship.
Okay, we get a little card that says there's a meeting, but it says nothing about what we're here for, so in the future, I think that would be.
No, all it says, you get a notice of the, what's on the agenda.
Yep,
So, and that's
And-
why it says, if you have questions, give us a call. But exactly what's on this agenda is what was sent to you.
okay. Is it possible to see where this sidewalk is proposed?
On the plan?
Yeah, like I
They're
have,
proposing not to have it.
no, I understand that,
Where
but
would
can-
it be if it were
because I have a,
Through you.
Go right ahead.
Sure.
I'd like to know too.
So it was originally proposed, see where the utility line is?
okay, I gotta get my orientation.
Okay, here's Long Pond.
Here's the driveway.
You're over
Okay.
here.
Yep.
Here's the driveway.
Yep.
Where the utility line is,
Yep.
it was proposed to go
Oh, okay.
right there.
Now it makes sense. Okay,
And
I have a question. I have,
you can stay here if you want.
okay.
We got a microphone right here.
Okay,
Have a
sorry
seat.
about that. About 2 years ago, I started to say this up top. Two or 3 years ago, Dirt Works came and they paved. After they paved, I came down to,
Paved the street in, you mean?
no, paved the street and repaved the Dr. Wilder's parking lot.
Okay.
Parking lot goes around the other side. At that point, I came into the planning department asked for a, I don't know, about 8.5 by 11 sheet of the printout, and I went home and I colored it with a marker. All the place that isn't open space. And I cut it out, and I stuck it on a piece of paper, and I don't know what the open space law is, but based on what I was told 3 years ago, and again, I can't even remember what it was, I want to say 56%. There's no way that that was 56%. So number one, I'm not in favor of this, because the reason, in my opinion, that he doesn't want to put this in is there's a lot right there, and in the summertime, overflow parks in those spaces to the right-hand side on the dirt. So it just seems that year after year, they try to circumvent the rules to make what they want to do. Because, you know, if they're supposed to put this in
Then
for
let's put it in.
ADA, in my opinion, they have to put it in.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, they don't want it in because it's going to affect parking spots.
I'd like to address that actually, because you're talking about the slope when you go up the driveway to the left.
Yep. There's
They're not-
trees, and then there's an open spot, and last summer there were cars in that open spot. Whether they're employees of Dr. Weiler's or whatever.
They're
Yep,
parking on
right up
that?
here. They're parking up here.
Okay, well,
There's, right now,
there's a lot of parking, and I've never had an issue with parking, so as I said, my couple of years down here,
But I'd like to say we can address that, but that's not what
Okay.
Right.
That's all my.
I
Thank you very
understand,
much.
that's not what we're looking at tonight. We're looking at the ramp itself.
Right.
We didn't ask for your report,
You
Charlene.
didn't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I do believe that this is a valid request. I don't have any concerns with it. I would say to the board that if this were to be denied and they have to continue doing this, the applicant will be required to file a modification to the plan. They more than likely would have to go back to the Zoning Board of Appeals. They already did receive a variance from the green maximum allowable site coverage back in 2008. So it may require that they have to go back to the ZBA to get even more of a variance to put in, because it's no longer going to be just a straight sidewalk. It's going to have to be a ramp, which means switchbacks.
Yeah.
So there's going to be, you know, additional green space lost. The ZBA would have to more than likely weigh in on this unless they can keep it under that, but I'm not sure how they're going to be able to do that because they're so close now. Just a few points to raise. It's entirely up to you. I'm not trying to, you know, it just, so the applicant knows what he would have to be doing. You know, he can't just build a straight shot for the sidewalk. So it would require additional work on their part and potentially going back to the ZBA.
Okay, Joe?
I just want to make sure it's on the record. The plan we're looking at is dated May 30th, 2006. So that's how long this thing has been going on.
amendment is 12.
But
Oh,
the
I
most-
understand, I
Yeah,
understand.
okay.
But the original plan shows 2006, and
It actually goes back even further than that, Joe.
I'm sure it does. My memory is it goes back further than that.
Yeah, well, I have the same issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've said what I had to say.
Having said that, are there any further questions? I would suggest that if you see the parking on the dirt next year, use your cell phone, take a picture, and forward it to Charlene, and she'll give it to the building inspector.
Actually, please forward it to the building inspector and copy me in, because he is the zoning enforcement officer, so it's best to go right to him, but certainly,
And his
Copy me
his
in.
email address is right on the town website.
It-
So if they are, just take a
and
photograph.
his cards are right out there too as well, Wayne, so grab those.
Now, did you say they have that
But
parking
he
lot
can't,
across the street?
nobody can hear you,
Oh,
you
okay.
have to, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
We are recording this and the microphones
I
aren't that
apologize.
great.
all right.
What was, you mentioned something about they got approved for parking lot across the street? I don't know what that is.
Across the driveway.
across the driveway. So across the driveway, so not across Long Pond?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
That-
no.
That was my
Yeah,
question.
everybody keeps calling the drive into the site a road, and it's not.
And they
It's a
did get a
driveway.
variance to exceed the site coverage. That was approved. So the variance that you checked out, you were correct, but they did get a variance to do it. So they were approved for that. Joe?
Last one. I also think that it should be on the record that since this was first applied at Fontaine, they now have an emergency facility.
Urgent care center.
Urgent care center. And that obviously increases the traffic and so forth that comes and goes from that facility.
Well, we can use our new ambulance for that.
I
Well,
noticed the price.
I mean, with all of that, of course, to the point that everyone's made, I mean, with that comes additional parking, right? And they shouldn't be parking,
That parking on the right.
Yep.
Up into the right, they
Yep.
added when they opened up the
Right.
emergency.
right?
Well, actually, if I might, this added parking is actually on Dr. Weiler's property.
Right
Yeah,
here.
no,
And
no,
the-
I'm talking about the medical centers, up here.
Fontaine.
Yeah,
Fontaine,
but this is a separate lot from the medical center.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Okay.
And that the driveway is actually a shared driveway that Fontaine Medical has an easement over.
Okay. I think we've answered all the questions, I hope. And if there are no further questions, do we have to close that? No. No,
Not a public hearing.
go
It's
ahead.
not a public
No,
hearing.
it's not a public hearing.
No. Go ahead, Mary.
I move that planning board accept the following, adopt the following findings of fact. One, that the parcel is in the RR zoning district. Two, that the application does not substantially change the relationship of the structure to the site and to abutting properties. Three, that there are adequate handicap parking spaces to accommodate visitors to the site. And four, there will be limited impact on other existing uses of the site.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
What was your vote, Larry?
My vote is in the affirmative.
Okay, so the finding of facts pass, because it's 3-2.
Okay.
So I move that the board approve the following waiver of site plan pursuant to Harwich Code Section 325-55F, and approve case PB 2018-14 Weiler, Welke and Associates as applicant, Weiler Family LP as owner, and seek to, for the
It should
approval.
just be approval of.
For the approval of a waiver of site plan to remove the proposed sidewalk from the approved site plan that runs from Long Pond Drive to the Weiler office. The property is located at 527 Long Pond Drive, map 111, parcel A2 in the RR and WR zoning districts. The application is pursuant to the Code of Town of Harwich 325-55F, based on the finding of fact above, and that the fact that the proposal does not substantially change the relationship of the structure to the site or to abutting properties and structures, and the application meets the necessary requirements and criteria for the approval of the waiver of site plan to remove the proposed sidewalk.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
It
Okay.
does not pass because a waiver of site plan does require an affirmative vote of 4 members.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is PB 2015-12. Mark T. Smith seeks a partial release for the covenant of lots 2 and 3 within the preserved, quote-unquote, subdivision, Arthur's Way off Route 39. Tell-
Mark Smith, Orleans Road Realty, LLC. asking for the 2 lots to be released so we can obtain building permits, get going.
Okay. Charlene?
Hold on a second.
You
Trying to find my
okay?
stuff. Okay. Okay. As Mr. Smith just said, he is seeking covenant release for lots 2 and 3 from the Arthur's Way subdivision, also called the Preserve. This is the road that you have been seeing being put into, constructed off of Route 39, near the Sampet Road there on 39,
Yep,
across the street.
where the construction was going on today.
Yeah,
I didn't go by there, so, but anyway,
You're lucky.
it has been reviewed by engineering, and they do recommend that they're not seeking any funds at this point, but that certainly holding the additional 6 lots is more than enough to cover the additional work that needs to be done on this road. The road, as it is constructed this far, does provide for safe and adequate access for the purposes of the issuance of building permits for these 2 parcels.
Any discussion? Yeah?
So that if we release 2, you'll still have 6
Yes,
that we can
exactly,
glom onto if we had to.
Right.
exactly. And if,
I hope we never do.
No,
Yes.
I'm not,
As soon as they sell one, we'll get our money, I bet.
and you did receive a copy of the small plan in your packet, so it's, as you drive in, it's not the first lot on the left, it's the second and third lot on the left. So it is at the beginning of the road, not
where
at
it's
the
all
end
been
of the road.
cleared, right?
yeah, we're stumping the lots out,
Yep, yep.
trying to
One-
make it pretty.
Yeah, one thing I want to remind Mark about is, don't forget your sidewalk.
Yep.
Please. We had a gentle reminder of that just a minute ago.
What's that?
We had a gentle reminder of that just a few
But
minutes
because
ago.
this is a road, they don't have to comply with
I
the
get
same
it.
requirements.
No,
but
the
if you-
sidewalk's actually gonna be quite nice on the road.
How many total lots?
8. 8 building lots, and I think they might have called the 9th lot with some of the other
It's
space.
the buffer area
Yeah, the buffer
between
area,
that and
so
the
that
abutting.
technical planning stuff
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you guys do.
Yep.
Did you purchase this from somebody else, or were you the original applicant?
Original applicant. Yep. Yep.
So you want to start building? Well, we get some money out of the building permit, don't we?
Yes.
Well, that's a bonus.
I'm eager to get going.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't wanna miss this market.
you've done a nice job clearing and
Well, we're gonna be
utilities
We're
and.
gonna be doing a lot more extensive, we're gonna have a beautiful entrance area with the nice diamond rail fence and the columns and the landscaping and
Yeah.
common irrigation system for all that too, so it's gonna be maintained and look
Right.
primo, so
That's good.
we're excited to get going on it.
Any other questions? Hearing none? Joe?
Whoops.
Whoops, here.
You just say I approve,
Move to approve.
the release of lots 2 and 3.
Move to approve release of lots 2 and 3.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried.
Thank you very much.
If I
Appreciate
can
it.
get the board members to sign on each of these lines, if you would sign 2 copies, it's always been my experience that somehow a copy of the original gets lost someplace. So it's nice to have a spare in the event that they need to come back.
Conclude the meeting on
Actually, while you guys are signing, awesome job at town meeting, everybody. That's, I think, the first time I've been at a town meeting where zoning bylaws actually went through with very little issue.
That's because they were so beautifully crafted.
That's right.
I'll pat myself on the back.
I think it was well done. And again, Charlene, I love how you're managing the presentations and so forth, so
I
that you get them
apologize,
up
we
in front
didn't,
of.
yeah,
It's
the
okay.
projector didn't work. So-
But I
Doesn't
think,
make me sign
I
on
think
the other
people
side
are
all
getting
by
accustomed to
myself.
that now, and the
Yeah.
visual
That's because you just stand
messaging is great.
Special.
You're
So
so
thanks
special.
very much.
All by
Thank
myself.
you, thank you.
Really appreciate it.
You can pick up my
Okay, the
handwriting.
next item on the agenda would be the meeting minutes from March 27th, a week after St. Patrick's Day, 2018.
Move to adopt the meeting minutes of March 27th.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, the next item, old business. Nothing.
I'm old, but I don't have any business.
You're gonna give us the business. Okay. And next one, briefings and reports by the board members. What has the finance committee been doing lately?
You wouldn't know, he's not on it.
I'm not on
Oh,
it. No, I'm on capital. Capital outlay.
sorry.
Charlene.
I have a question for the board. There are a couple of things that I've noted, and they're very different. One of which is you know where Austin Road is in the,
Yes.
right? So, in that piece of property there where we had piping and so forth stored, I'm not clear on who owns that or why, but I do know that from an environmental viewpoint, every time there's a storm, there's runoff from that lot, and it runs all over Austin Road. And I'm wondering whether or not we can get some bunding or some straw to kind of keep that runoff from. Contained.
We couldn't
This
go
is
and
not
ask
on the
town.
agenda, so we do need to be cautious of how much conversation we have regarding this. Austin Road is a private road,
Is it?
yes. That is owned by Eastward Companies and Bill Marsh, so that is a private road.
Okay.
Um,
But it's used as a public way.
It's used as a way,
Yeah.
yeah, as a cut-through.
Yes.
How about if we put it on an agenda and invite either Mr. Marsh or his,
I can just send them an email and say,
Send
hey.
Sue
can
Ledoux
you-"
a note.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll be happy to send Susan a note.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just an.
they've always been very.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something that if they did, people would notice and would be well received, right?
No, I'll be happy to just send an email.
And by the way, they're the primary contractor on the harbor.
Saquotucket Harbor.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, so, something to, and I look at stuff like that just because of my experience.
Yep.
The other thing that I will say, I love our recycling center, and there are 2 roll-off boxes for glass, you know, and those guys work at sorting. I think we could be a lot more efficient, and we could even make more money if there were 3 roll-off boxes, because when you make glass, there are only 3 colors that you have. You have flint, which is clear, you have green,
And brown.
and you have amber, which is the brown, right? If you sort that, I know glass companies would love to have it that way.
Did they sort it again?
They really don't have to spend much money sorting on it, but you get a higher price for clean scrap.
I would
Color.
suspect, although, and like Charlene's going to tell you, that's not on the agenda.
It's
But
also
we
not a
did-
planning board thing, but certainly give,
Send him a note.
Lincoln Hooper is the
Yeah.
director.
And very responsive.
Yeah, pop in and see Lincoln.
I think, I think we'll do that, and it's just
Yeah.
something that I mean, obviously I've thought about that because I was in the glass business. It's very simple to do. It's 1 extra roll-off box, and you just sort and label them, you know, flint, amber, green, done.
Don't
No
do
one's
it
gonna
that
know what
complicated for
Flint-
this town.
Clear, green, brown.
Whatever, yeah.
Scotch, vodka, Jägermeister.
You got it.
He's, in,
Don't forget, you're being
just my
recorded
opinion,
right now.
He's probably, I think, one of, if not the best department head in the
Yeah,
town.
yep,
And, well, that's the way I feel.
yeah,
And has been for a very long time.
yeah.
So I make that point in that if you go to see him, you'll get a response.
Yeah, I think it's important for this board to just, you know, show value or add value, and I think comments like these are for the betterment of every citizen, so.
Good idea.
Thank you very much.
Keep driving around town.
Well, I'm here with, no, you know, I can do that.
Any other briefings or reports? Hearing none.
Motion to adjourn.
It's been moved and
Second?
seconded by Mr.
Jim,
McFarland and Mr. Atkinson.
Yeah.
Any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. See
It's a
you
great meeting.
in a couple of weeks. You off?
You're free.
You're off.
Okay, now we can talk.
Apparently, at the,
First, can I?
oh, go ahead,
Is that off already?
Yeah.
No.
unplug it.
Oh, God. Give her back that, I'll use that the next time.